Hello everyone and welcome to rural Germany. For the past 10 episodes we've been working on a town which was called Weissenburg, but in today's episode we are going to move on from that and start a brand new town. In the previous episode we built the river where the town will be located at, and for this town I want to take a little bit of inspiration from the Ahrtal, which was one of the heaviest hit places by the summer floods in 2021 in the area. And a part of it being a very nice valley, I also want to try to incorporate a little bit of these floodings in the town. Maybe not in today's episode, but in another episode I want to focus on making it look like there actually was a flood in the past. So, without further ado, let's get started and welcome to Ardorf. So, as I mentioned in the intro, Ardorf will be located next to the river built in the previous episode, somewhere halfway from the source to the lake where it ends. The town will be located on the inside of a corner in the river, with part of it being on the outside of the corner. The real-life town that gave me the inspiration for this location and layout of the town isn't actually a German town, but a French one, called Monthermé in the very north of France. We won't be taking any building inspiration or anything from the town, nor will we be copying the exact layout of the town. It's just a town that gave me an idea to build such a town, with part of it being on the inside and on the outside of a corner in the river. And I know that there's way more towns that have this kind of layout. It's just that when I was there, I thought it looked good and I wanted to build a city like that in City Skylines. That's all. So there's probably tons of other towns that have the same layout. But yeah, that's just a little story that I wanted to mention. Anyways, we're starting to place the first buildings of this town, and obviously we're starting with placing a church. I purposefully placed it on a spot where the main road makes a turn, so you can perfectly see it from the bridge that leads over the river. Together with placing the buildings very close to this main street, it made for a great see-through at the end, where you could see the church from the bridge. This was also the screenshot that I attached to the community post saying that there would be an upload today, so you probably already have seen how it looks. Here we are messing around a bit to detail the plaza in front of the church, and because of the terrain difference I wanted to add a little, well, you could almost say porch to the building that is in the middle of your screen right now, and have it end in a stairway that leads to the left part of the building, so you would have a nice place in front of this, what I assume would be a cafe, and it doesn't look too weird with the elevation. Next up we are going to build a little graveyard at the back of the church. I haven't built something like this before, but I really wanted to add it because trying out new stuff is fun, and it turned out great at the end, so I have no complaints. The graveyard won't be too big though, so I'm guessing that there would be a second graveyard somewhere outside of the village, because obviously in the middle of the village there isn't a lot of space to just randomly plop down a graveyard. But still, I wanted to add one. As I said, it's nice to try out new stuff, and it just really gives that extra touch to the entire church area. Before moving on to the next part of this episode, we are building something that I also don't do that often: gates in fences. Usually I just leave that little detail for what it is, but for the entrance of the graveyard I wanted to add a gate because it just looks really nice. Furthermore, we are adding a small statue over here because why not? And then let's move on to the next part. For the next part we are going to be detailing the one side of the church area that we haven't detailed so far. This will be a pretty big square-ish thing with a little market on top of it and just houses around it and a bus stop, etc. And since there's not a lot more to say about that, I'll leave you all with a nice time lapse and I'll be right back. Next up, we continue with the main street and building houses on both sides of it. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we are building these houses relatively close to the main road so that you have a really nice see-through from the bridge towards the church. You can also see the first signs of flood damage in this shot. The house on the right bottom corner is pretty damaged, and although the author of this asset probably meant it as damage that is there because of the age, it can also easily be seen as damage done by the water when the flood occurred almost 2 years ago. The same goes for this building that we just placed on the left bottom of this house row. You can see that the bottom floor is a lot darker than the top floors, which implies that there is also water damage that was done there. This building is actually a hotel that almost bankrupted after the flood, but as it's one of the best hotels in the town, with some funding from the local authorities, it managed to stay alive and fix the broken parts of the hotel, and now it gets tons of tourists again. Anyways, while I was talking about that hotel, we started building the bridge. I use PO here to resize and move a bridge asset that looks pretty medieval or old in general under the road that we already built earlier to make it look like one bridge. Parts of this bridge have collapsed during that one flood 2 years ago, but as this was a pretty iconic bridge in the town, they tried to rebuild it in the old style, which is why you don't see the damage here that was done by the flood. Okay, I'm running behind on the video again. Here we are placing some stains to also show that the flood has done significant damage to the pavement and road, before we move on with placing some more houses and detailing gardens. As it shows, the bench has been rebuilt after the flood, and we are also adding a few more cracks to make it look even more flooded and destroyed. Here we are going to detail a bit around this small side road that we just built, mainly consisting of creating a few backyards and detailing them a lot, before we are going to move on with creating height differences to deal with the terrain that we have right here. I'm again making use of a few fence gates to make it look even more realistic, and it's safe to say that those are probably one of my best backyards that I have done, at least in my opinion. Maybe it is because I just built them, who knows, but I just really like those two backyards here. Probably my favorite two backyards that we built in this episode. Now it's time to deal with those height differences. To give some context, this town, or at least this part of the town, is built on a pretty big slope, and I still wanted a relatively, for a rural town, high density of houses as it's close to the center of the town and one of the oldest parts. To be able to do this without having some major sloped backyards, I had to do some height difference work, which is why we're doing a lot with terraforming networks, walls, and even stairs, etc. in the next few minutes of the video, which is something different, but in some way also really realistic for those towns. The next thing that we're going to do is pretty interesting, because we are going to add a stairway in the middle of the town that connects the higher level to the lower level in this neighborhood. Obviously, in the past, when cars didn't exist, this would have just been a normal walkway, but now no car can drive on it because it's too steep. It is a perfect solution to overcome the height difference that we have here, and they actually do it quite often in these older towns. So I decided to do it as well, because why not? It looks good and it is realistic. Here we are just messing around with a wall that will separate the stairs from someone's backyard. That backyard will be pretty interesting because it will be completely enclosed by walls, as it will be way lower than the level of all the surrounding houses. So yeah, that's just what we will be doing for the next part of the video, just messing around with height differences, walls, etc. to hopefully create a realistic slope and of course make these backyards and this entire area look really nice. I hope you enjoyed that pretty long detailing time-lapse. And with that said, we are closing in on the end of this video, so I want to thank you all for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, the new start, the new town, and I am very excited to see what this part of the series brings, so I hope you stick around to watch what we will be doing with this town in the next few episodes. Thank you so much to my patrons for always supporting me, and then I will see you in the next one. Enjoy the cinematics.